Meanwhile, strong rains are boosting hopes for a good harvest in Niger, where nearly half the people do not have enough to eat. But relief officials remain concerned about the food crisis. VOA West Africa correspondent Scott Stearns reports.
The strength of the international community's response to this year's food crisis in Niger has helped feed more than 220,000 children under the age of 5. The central and eastern regions were hardest hit. At an inpatient therapeutic feeding center in Zinder, cases of acute malnutrition have dropped from nearly 400 2 months ago to 242 today. The need is still great. While more than 85% of children here recover fully, the death rate is still nearly 8%. Other mothers leave the program before the treatment is complete. With 7 full-time doctors and 41 nurses, the center, run by Médecins Sans Frontières, has helped save the lives of children from the Zinder commune, as well as the surrounding areas of Myria and Magaria. Valerie Amos is the United Nations Emergency Relief Coordinator and the Undersecretary General for Humanitarian Affairs.
Things are improving slightly, but it's still extremely sobering. This is a country where the development indicators are all very poor, where you have population growth on a very large scale. I saw women today, I saw one woman who had 9 children, 4 of them had died. There's a huge amount of public education and awareness raising that needs to be done. And it's a terrible thing to see children in that kind of situation.
Though acute malnutrition is on the decline here, hunger in Niger is always a cycle. Even the best harvest will not last most families beyond February. Despite good rains, many millet farmers are already deep in debt from last year's failed crops, so they'll have less for themselves after paying off their loans. In the village of Tumor, less than 60 kilometers from Chad, pastoralists who moved their cattle across the border lost nearly a third of their herd to disease. Those who stayed behind lost as much as half their cattle. The UN says some isolated nomadic herders in northern enclaves lost everything. The UN Development Program has helped give pastoralists access to credit to rebuild their herds. Valerie Amos says more cattle and better rains alone cannot solve Niger's structural malnutrition.
It speaks to the structural issue. You have very poor education indicators. You have a country that's quite complicated in the sense that you have people who are pastoralists, some are nomadic, some stay put. The country is vast with a small population. The infrastructure is poor. Agricultural development is not taking place at the kind of rate that it should. And it's also suffering the impact of climate change.
Relief officials say the response to this year's food crisis improved greatly after February's coup because military leaders were far more realistic about the challenges than the deposed government of Mamadou Tanja. As the country moves toward a new civilian government, Amos says what happens next is critical to Niger's survival.
I hope that that government will really look around and see what is happening to the people of Niger and put long-term sustainable development at the top of its agenda.
Voters in Niger decide whether to accept a new constitution later this month. If approved, it would lead to presidential elections in January, just as relief officials believe the next wave of hunger will begin. Scott Stearns, VOA News, Tumor, Niger.